Welcome back to HowToVanish.com. This is Trace.
And this is Bill.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about an article that appeared in Bloomberg. What happened is a private banker from Merrill Lynch, located in Brazil, has been charged by the Brazilian authorities with circumventing currency control type laws. Now, in his duties with Merrill Lynch, what he was doing is he grew up in Brazil in a wealthy family. They spent time at the country club, so he was going to find and acquire clients for Merrill Lynch. A lot of Brazilians are wealthy, and for the most part they don't pay a lot of taxes because it's hard to track the wealth there. And so they've got this culture of decreasing their expenses. Anyways, this private Merrill Lynch banker, he's been charged with aiding and abetting in this type of tax evasion. And he's done this mainly through a technique we talk about on How to Vanish quite a bit called Hawala banking or Hawala transactions. And Hawala is a name for what's called flying money. And in this case, what they would do is they would take a bunch of the Brazilian currency to a local dolarios, and they would give them the cash, and then this entity, they would accredit their Swiss bank account or their Hong Kong bank account with the equivalent amount of money. And so this is a way that they would be able to get the money out of Brazil without using the traditional banking system, in the sense that they aren't having their transactions reported to the central bank on a regular basis. So this fellow, he's been charged by the Brazilian authorities, and Merrill Lynch has pretty much left him out to dry. They've terminated his employment. So if somebody is engaged in legal transactions, remember there's a lot of jurisdictions, if we're engaged in legal transactions of this sort, how can we avoid possibly even being suspected of engaging in something illegal like this?
Right, well, the laws are different everywhere, but there's still plenty of ways to engage in legal and lawful Hawala transactions. So the first thing that I would recommend that you do is to take advantage of the reporting requirements when you travel with cash. You only have to report when you're traveling with $10,000 or more. So if you're taking $9,500 with you, you don't have to report it. You can keep that cash in your pocket and you don't have to tell anyone about it. And that is per person. So if you're traveling with your spouse, you can have $9,500, your spouse can have $9,500. If you have a friend who's traveling across an international border, you can give that money to them and have them carry it across. So as long as you have less than $10,000 crossing an international border, you won't have to report it. So the second thing that I would recommend would be to use encryption. Encrypt all of your communications, whether it's by email or other type of communication with the individuals. Encrypt all the individual files, encrypt the amounts, encrypt the identities of the individuals, encrypt everything. And the third thing that I would recommend you do is to use jurisdictional arbitrage. So use multiple jurisdictions to house different parts of your transaction. So for example, if you're in Hong Kong, you can use Singapore to be the basis of all your communications. So maybe your email server is located in Singapore if you're in Hong Kong. And then have another country, another jurisdiction, house your data, your encrypted data. So maybe Iceland. Iceland is a great place to house data because they have really strong protection of free speech and things like that. And one of the best ways to do that, to use that jurisdictional arbitrage, is to use VPN or proxy server connections, because that way you are the terminal that you're at in whatever country you're at, you're creating an encrypted connection to another computer. So if your VPN is connecting you to a computer in another country, say Iceland when you're in Hong Kong, you've got not only encryption of that connection, but you're using that jurisdictional arbitrage, so that whatever activity is taking place, it's encrypted in the country where you're at, and it's going outside of that jurisdiction. So those are the three things that I would recommend.
Great. So if we ended up like this Merrill Lynch banker, and for whatever reason we had a bunch of cash that needed to move from one country to another, even if it were on a regular basis, and assuming it's legal, what we would do is take cash with us whenever we travel on vacation or whatever. We would take up to the $10,000 limit, us and our spouse, or perhaps children if they're of age. We'd also have our friends perhaps take some cash with us. Then we would use encryption for both our email, correct, and also our data.
Right.
And to access our email servers or to access our data, we would use a virtual private network, so that if you're in Brazil, for example, you would use your VPN to get out to, say, France, and then from there you would connect your email server in Singapore, and you would house your data in Iceland, and all of this would make it a lot more difficult in order to trace exactly where the internet traffic's going, where the emails are going, and even if they get a hold of the data, it's all encrypted, which is going to make it even more difficult to figure out exactly what's going on here.
Right, so if you're engaging in legal and lawful transactions, you won't even arouse suspicion.
And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to help people who are engaged in legal transactions to take control of their personal privacy. And this is a great way, because the last thing you'd want to do is become a target for identity thieves or kidnappers or other people of nefarious means who would want to try and steal from you or kidnap you or something of that nature. So this is a great way that you can protect your personal privacy. So thanks for that tip, Bill.
No problem, Trace.